providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Welcome to Success is a Choice podcast with Jamy Bechler. Today we are very excited to have with us a special guest, Betsy Butterick. She is a former Division I college athlete and a former college basketball coach who is now the coach's coach, a communication specialist. She's goes around the country speaking to different teams and businesses about how they can improve their communication and just get better performance. Betsy, awesome to have you today. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Jamie. It's great to be here. I'm really pleased that you asked. This is a treat.
Awesome. Now, you're a coach's coach. That's what's on your website, at least. I've heard you speak before to a bunch of coaches. You did a great job, but you're a coach's coach. What does that mean, and what makes you a little bit different in your coaching than maybe a typical executive coach or a life coach?
That's a great question because coaching coaches, that's not a thing, right? What makes me different, and I think how this all came to be, my background is in basketball. So I spent 10 years in the profession. Between my career as a player and as a coach, I've worked in or played in junior college, Division I, Division II, Division III, and the WNBA. So I have a variety of experience. And I think that in terms of assets makes me most suited to coach coaches at all levels. And I often get the question, well, your background's in basketball, how can you coach coaches of all sports? And it's because the work that we do as coaches is about our sport, but it's mostly about people. And my training as a coach, my certificate specifically is as an integral coach, which just means that I look at a person holistically. If you have an issue at work, I'm not just going to look at that issue in terms of you at work, but from the perspective of you as a whole person. So combining my background in coaching at all levels, but also my experience in training with people, really makes me uniquely suited to coach coaches. Now, I said before, coaching coaches isn't a thing yet, but it's trending that way, and that's something that I'm very committed to helping build within the athletic profession. It's a best practice in corporate America currently for CEOs and executives to have a coach, someone that helps them expand their skill sets and get better at what it is that they do, what it is that they love. And I want to be that individual for coaches, and that's the path that I've started to walk.
That's awesome. I once heard a guy who does a lot of business coaching say, you can't see the picture when you're inside the frame.
Exactly.
And that's why people need coaches. Even high-level athletes like a Michael Phelps or, these Olympians, they still need a coach, even though they're at that high level. And there's no reason, like you say, that a coach shouldn't want and need a coach themselves. But within the coaching profession or coaching coaches, you do a lot with communication. That's not the only thing that you teach or emphasize, but that is kind of what your specialty is. And what is that? What is the communication that you're teaching, and why is that important for teams or even businesses? Kind of communication, you say you can resolve issues before they even become problems. What does that mean?
That sounds like a magical power, right? Yeah, communication. And it's interesting, Jamie, because my background is in psychology. I mean, I have no communication degree. It really is something that evolved twofold. One, over time, I was born to a family of readers and grew up with a love for reading and for writing. I have a twin brother. And when we were young in the summers, my mom had us do a summer journal. And the rule was that we had to write one page or for 30 minutes a day in these, black and white speckled composition notebooks. And looking back on them now as an adult is truly a joy. There was a page, I remember my brother's journal, where he filled the entire page with, I hate this stupid journal, I hate this stupid journal, I hate this stupid journal, which is funny because he is part of the reason why I learned to write so well. He was someone that always challenged me to take out the fluff, as he called it, and how can you say what you want to say in fewer words, more directly, more succinctly. And that was kind of my first challenge in writing, which eventually led itself to becoming a better communicator. In terms of why communication, I remember distinctly a point in my career. I was at Occidental College. I coached with Heidi Vanderveer for a long time, 7 years. I think we won 5 championships in 7 years together. And I believe it was our third year at Occidental when it was just the two of us. So we split all the coaching duties together. And that was the first time where she said, you know what, Bets, I want you to focus solely on recruiting. So I'll do all the scouting. You do all the recruiting. And that was the first time where I found myself learning about our opponent at the same speed as our players. So when Heidi was going through the scouting report in the week prior to the game and telling us about the individuals and about their defense and offense, I was having to listen and learn at the same rate as our players. And that's really when I began to be curious about, okay, how specifically as coaches are we relaying our messages to our players? How are they understanding us or misunderstanding us? How can we be more effective in our communication within our staff, within the context of our team, with our players, and what does that communication really look like? So that's really what sparked the interest. When you think of a specialist, or when I think of a specialist, I typically think of someone who has done a lot of research and study within a specific field or topic, but more so just has an insatiable curiosity for a certain topic. And that's really how I feel about communication. When it comes to communication and sport, something that's really interesting, and I always begin my championship communication workshop with this, is that of all the factors that contribute to success, why would we focus on communication? Well, two reasons. Because communication is really, it's always relevant. It's central to everything that we do. And it's a skill, so it can be developed. And we spend roughly 83% of our day engaged in some form of communication. But as people, we tend to only be intentional about our communication when we have something important to say. So when we're giving a pregame speech or conducting an interview or composing an important email or having a conversation, difficult conversation maybe with a player. So that's when we tend to be intentional. So my challenge for each participant in every communication workshop that I do is my only ask is for you to leave this room a little more intentional about your communication than when you came in. And so far we've had 100% success rate. So that's great. But when you talk about championships, if you listen to any form of media, the buzzword most often associated with championship teams is chemistry. And chemistry is grounded in connection, and the heart of connection really is communication. So if we can focus on communication, if we can identify the ways that miscommunication comes about, if we can make a team full of great communicators, we've greatly increased our likelihood of success.
Why is communication so hard?
You know, I think it's so hard because we're not that intentional about it. It's something that we always do. I mean, think about recruiting a student athlete. You're looking for a specific skill set, but rarely are we looking at how they communicate. Maybe if it's position specific, let's say if I'm looking for a point guard, I know I want them to be a great communicator. I want them to be, usually we term it a vocal leader. But what are they saying? What are they not saying? How much do they listen? What is their body language like? There's so many facets of communication that we simply do, but we don't really think about. They just happen.
When I saw you speak once to a large group of coaches, you did a number of activities to get your mind kind of percolating about communication and to emphasize how important communication is. And in fact, I've even quote unquote borrowed some of those in some of my workshops and presentations that I've given, and describe kind of how people have different perspectives on communication, and they might communicate one thing thinking that they're communicating a certain thing, but really someone that's listening or seeing that is getting a whole different perspective on that communication.
Sure. And that happens all the time. In the championship communication workshop that I do, I always start with what I call 6 barriers to effective communication. And those are context, tone, trust, timing, clarity, and word choice. And as you said, we'll do several interactive activities with the audience to illustrate the importance of each. But when we talk about context, I talk about really your structure of interpretation, which is we each as an individual have this kind of imaginary filter with which we take in information and through which we filter everything, every kind of message that comes to us. And that filter is created by an accumulation of all the experiences that we've had as an individual. So if I'm a coach and I'm speaking to, let's say, a team of 16 people, I might be saying one thing, but how that thing is filtered through an individual structure of interpretation is going to be different for those 16 individuals. So when we talk about understanding intention, so what is it that I intend to say, and then how is my message being received? One of the barriers is clarity. And then I talk about in the workshop how we can check for clarity and affirm the message and what the structure of effective communication looks like, where what I said is what they heard and it's what's understood and it's what's being communicated moving forward. Other things talk about, tone. Tonality is huge. Most of us at some point have been guilty of using the wrong tone. And I think that's the one that you're referencing, having stolen, and I appreciate you stealing. There's that phrase, why reinvent the wheel when you can steal? There's an exercise called O, and it's a short word, and I have participants say the word O in a tone that matches the word that I say, and I say a variety of emotions, and the result is amazing. And it's very clear how a shift in tone has such a dramatic impact on the way that that word is understood and received.
Now, when you coach college basketball, did you have some of this same stuff in mind, or did you develop it more toward the end of your coaching or after you were done with coaching?
So I kind of a hybrid. In the same way that we don't think about our communication often unless we have something important to say, I didn't necessarily think about a variety of the examples that I use now while I was experiencing them. It was after the fact when I stopped coaching, or I really began to be curious about, okay, well, if I said this as a coach, why wasn't it understood exactly the way that I said it? Looking back is when, hindsight's 20/20. Looking back is really when it became more clear the ways in which communication did or didn't happen. And from that, examples of, okay, well, how can we take that lesson and turn it into an experiential activity that other people can learn from without having to have had the same experience that I did? And then other things that are in my presentations are really just the accumulation of things that I've read or TED Talks that I've listened to or experiences that I've had in conversation with other people. I mean, that's really what the ACT videos, the active communication technique videos that I started doing this year on YouTube, most of those come from life experience. So I'm kind of learning in real time, and that's part of what I love about communication is there's so much to learn. There's not a stopping point, and it's all relevant.
We'll get back to Betsy in just a moment. She is definitely an expert in communicating, and I have learned that if you want to communicate to more people, then one of the best ways to do that is to have a sweet-looking website. HostGator.com is offering our listeners up to 50% off the regular price when they use coupon code SUCCESS. They make communicating on the WWW a relatively painless process. Whether you are an expert or a novice like this guy, Jamy Bechler, then HostGator.com can help anyone. That's right. They even helped me, and they have great support too. They've helped me when I've had issues and don't know what to do. But anyways, use coupon code SUCCESS to save some money. And now back to the communication coach, Betsy Butterick.
We will put those ACT videos in the show notes so people can go and check those out. Those are amazing videos. They're very quick, about 1.5 to 2 minutes long, and on various topics. And you do a good job on those. You do another thing called Success for Teams. What is that, and how did that come about?
Sure. Success for Teams. That was really a passion project. Having left college basketball specifically, it's a very lonely road when you all of a sudden are a solopreneur and your entire life from when you were small as a player through college and then in the coaching profession, you've always been part of a team. So the natural inclination is to seek out others in the space. And it was a friend of mine who similarly had left a career in college soccer. Molly Gresham is her name. And she now does leadership development with teams and with coaches. And I remember I was on the road to Dallas this past spring to speak at the Final Four. And Molly called me. I'm in the car. And she's like, okay, Bets, I have an idea. And you're going to love it. And you're going to say yes, but let me pitch it to you anyways. I said, okay. And she got about 5 sentences in. And I said, Molly, you can stop. Like, I'm in. This is great. And what it was she had been talking with a gal I didn't know at the time, but again, someone in the space, former tennis coach who's been doing mental skills training with teams for a number of years now. And the concept was the three of us have in common that we left what we love, a career in coaching in our individual sports, tennis, soccer, basketball, to do something that we thought was important and to give back to the community that we care so much about. So how do we, in our experience, we know that communication, that leadership, and that mental skills are key components to a team overall success, to an individual's overall success. So how can we teach those things in a way that's very effective, doesn't take a lot of time, and that is memorable and impactful? So that was kind of the concept, and what that involved into is a business that we created called Success for Teams. And the products that we have are stories to support the connection between coaches and athletes while developing communication, leadership, and mental skills for success. So our initial product was for a niche market, and that was the transition of senior in high school who is committed to playing college athletics. So how can we help the transition from being, kind of the highest on the totem pole as a senior to what we sometimes see as the lowest on the totem pole? All of us often heard from coaches, I don't expect much of my freshmen. Anything that they give us is a bonus. And in our minds, we're like, well, why not? You've just taken the best leaders on a team and you're putting them at the lowest point on your team. And how can we kind of get them up to speed on what other college student athletes may have already experienced? So that's what we designed for. And the initial product was what we call Start Strong for Freshmen. And it was intentionally designed to start to develop that transition in relationship from recruiter to player coach, while also giving the student athlete some preparation in skill development in the areas of communication, leadership, and mental skills. So that's how it started. And the products have evolved now from Start Strong for Freshmen to Start Strong for Teams, Start Strong for high schools, and we're currently working on a version that's Start Strong for individuals.
That's awesome. So essentially 3 different areas. You formed a super team, just like the Golden State Warriors.
We did, and I love the Warriors. I'm from the Bay Area originally. I can watch them all day. And just the way they play basketball is beautiful. I have a lot of respect for Coach Kerr, so I appreciate the analogy. Thank you.
Anytime you can be compared to a champion, that's a good thing.
Exactly.
You once gave a speech at Toastmasters called Parking Karma. And I thought that was very interesting. Can you enlighten us about what parking karma is all about?
Sure. So a couple of years ago, I'd done Toastmasters. Again, especially if you're going to be in the public speaking space, you always want to try to improve and sharpen your skills. So I joined the local Toastmasters group. And one of the speeches that they asked us to give was, an instructional speech, kind of a how-to. And for my entire life, I've always had exceptional parking karma. It's become a joke in my family where people will say, well, I invoked the Betsy and they got a great parking spot. And it's something that I don't have to be in the car for. And it's something that I've always been grateful for, but I never really tried to understand why I have it or what the components were until I got this assignment from Toastmasters. And so the speech that I gave includes the recipe for exceptional parking karma. And it's broken down into 20% visualization, 25% intention, and then 55% gratitude. And so I just go into details about, what those percentages involve, what they look like. And then I answer some frequently asked questions, such as, do I need to be the one driving? Can I change my current parking karma? Isn't it just luck? So that's really what that speech was about, but kind of unearthing and making a little more tangible and accessible for all the greatness that is the experience of having exceptional parking karma.
So how can that be applied to even people that don't drive?
I think the biggest takeaway, when I say 55% gratitude, the fact that over half the recipe is about gratitude is the biggest part that translates to life in general. Just having and expressing genuine appreciation for, in this case, the wonderful spot that you've just parked in. But, if you want to translate it to life, whatever it is that you have currently, that you have the choice to be grateful for. And I think that's something that people often forget is, when good things happen, when life's going along smoothly, we sometimes forget to be grateful for the way that life's going along smoothly. And then when something disruptive happens, now it's like, oh, well, this isn't good. Well, think about all the other things that were good up until this point. And just that small shift in perspective, remembering to take time to be intentionally grateful for the things that are going well.
Well, one does not have to spend very much time listening to you or watching one of your videos to understand that you probably live this out pretty well with the gratitude, and you tend to have a lot of positivity. What's been a time in your life where you've faced challenges where that positivity and gratitude kind of helped you through and you were able to overcome the obstacles or the challenges that you faced?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I'll say the biggest one earlier in my life was my family moved to the Bay Area when I was 11 from the East Coast. And I immediately fell in love with Stanford basketball. It's where I wanted to play. And I was the only one in my family that played basketball. We knew nothing about the recruiting process. In hindsight, I should have gone to a different high school or, played club basketball earlier. But it was my goal since I was 11 to get admitted to Stanford and to try out as a walk-on for the team. And I applied out of high school and I got rejected. And I took that rejection letter and I taped it above my bed as motivation to get better. And I went to the local junior college and I played basketball there. And I was enrolled in the Honors Institute. And I applied again after my freshman year. And I got a second rejection letter from Stanford, but this time it had a really nice note from the admissions office that said, "Hey, Betsy, we realize you've applied twice. We had a high application pool for sophomore transfers. If you apply again a third time, you'll likely get in." And that was the decision point that I needed to get in is, okay, do I become the only person I know that now has gotten potentially rejected from Stanford 3 times, or do I accept the offer of a Division I scholarship even though it's not Stanford? And the kind of the positivity in that story was that I took something that was very hurtful. I mean, it was my dream to go to Stanford, and I got rejected twice. And what that felt like as a student athlete, but choosing to use that as motivation to work harder and to get better. And what that translated into was earning the Division I scholarship, having school paid for, even though it wasn't at Stanford. But the work that I had done to get to that goal by setting the bar really high, I landed in a great spot. And the reality is, oftentimes people ask me, well, you could do something differently. Like, wouldn't you rather have played at one school for your whole career? And while that quote might have been easier in some people's minds, the variety of experience that I got from the different places that I played, from the different places that I was a staff member, it added so much to my overall experience. I wouldn't change a thing.
Well, let's finish up with some rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Just kind of off the top of your head, give me some answers for these. What's a podcast or a book that you're currently consuming or that you would recommend?
Oh, gosh. Most of the audio listening that I do is TED Talks. I've got the TED app on my phone. That's typically what I listen to when I'm working out. There's this new podcast called Success is a Choice. I think it's with a guy named Jamy Bechler. Currently among my new favorites.
I appreciate the flattering comments. Thank you.
No problem. In terms of books, I just finished reading Emotional Agility by Susan David. Great read, equal balance of research, but also practical application. I started reading recently a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel, I think it's Kahneman, is Daniel's last name. And then I'm currently rereading Soup by John Gordon, doing a workshop with Stanford women's basketball later this month. And that's the book they're reading for the season. So wanted to brush up on that one as well.
Great. Who would you recommend I get on my show as a future podcast guest?
You should definitely see if you can talk with Sue Enquist. She's someone that I've recently started doing some collaborative work with. Aside from being a legend in the softball world, in the coaching world, she is just a bright light of a human being. I truly believe that if we run out of natural resources, Sue's energy could power the world for quite some time. So I'd recommend reaching out to Sue, absolutely.
Excellent. Who would you like to meet or get to know that you have never met or gotten to know before?
I love comedian James Corden. I think his carpool karaoke is fantastic. I've never met either of the Obamas. I'd love to meet them. I wish I could have met Maya Angelou. She's definitely someone that I look up to. And while she was here on Earth, I wish that was someone that I could have gotten to know.
Awesome. What is a favorite quote or mantra that you have in life?
Ooh, so many, Jamie. That's a tough one. I think one that I believe is currently attached to my email is a Rumi quote that says, "Let the beauty of what you love be what you do." If you've never read The Invitation by Oriah Mountain Dreamer, it starts with, "It doesn't interest me what you do for a living." It's long, so I won't repeat it now, but I think if there's one quote, and it's hard to call it a quote because it is so long, but if there's one thing that really sums up the way I aspire to live, that would be it. And most recently, if you've seen the movie Wonder Woman, there's a point towards the end where she says, "It doesn't matter what they deserve, it matters what you believe." and I believe in love. And that I got chills. I get chills now, even saying it. Like that really is, kind of my foundational belief for existing in the world. I believe in love. And if I can give back to the coaching community by doing what I love, that's a life well lived.
What would be one of the most important habits or qualities that have contributed to your success through the years?
Gosh, I think a healthy sense of perspective and a sense of humor. Those two things have been kind of my saving grace, realizing perspective-wise that where you are is not where you will always be, that this too shall pass. And so appreciating the good times, but also just knowing that the rough times will get better, or at least become different. And then having a sense of humor, especially when life gets tough. There's infinite ways that you can find things that happen in life funny, and that you have the ability to laugh at yourself, and cultivating that will just makes the ride a lot easier, a lot more enjoyable.
What reality show would you be on if you could be on any reality show?
Oh gosh. I have always wanted to do with my twin brother, The Amazing Race. I think especially as twins, but both as athletes and with very different skill sets. I would love to do The Amazing Race with my brother, Chris.
Nice. Okay. Other than your current job of being a coach's coach and a communication specialist and going around the country working with teams, which would be a lot of people's dream job. But other than your current job, what would you do if you could do anything?
Gosh, I have so much respect for musicians, artists that are kind of that killer combo of singer, songwriter, and musician. So if you can play an instrument and you can write the words to your own songs and then you can sing them to people, the incredible, transformative, impactful power that music has on an individual, on our culture. I'm in complete awe of that. So I think if I had that superpower to be a singer-songwriter and make music that moves the world, I think that would be really cool.
Do you play an instrument?
It depends on your definition of play. I've been learning guitar for about 6 years now, which means I can get all the chords up through G, and then I put it down for a while and do life and then pick it up again. So I am in a state of practice. But yeah, acoustic guitar, played piano when I was younger, took lessons. Always wanted to play the drums. Had a drum pad set, never the real thing, but I still keep sticks in my car and drum on the steering wheel just for fun. But yeah, that's pretty much the extent of my musical capabilities. When you're doing carpool karaoke. Yes, with James Corden.
What is one productivity tool or an app or a research source or some kind of software that you couldn't live without?
There's actually, this is a little bit revealing here. So there's an app called Insightly, and it's a meditation app. And part of when I was in my year of study to become a coach, part of the required practice was that we develop a meditation practice. And I'm one of those people that knows that meditation is great for me. I've experienced firsthand the benefits. I delayed doing it for about half the program until they told us, oh, by the way, when you go for certification, because not everyone gets certified, you have to, really demonstrate that you are ready to do this meaningful work with people. They said, basically, it's going to show whether or not you've done the meditative work. And that's when I was like, oh crap, I really got to get on this meditation stuff. And it was amazing when I did it, how much the world could be in chaos, my immediate world, and things would seem to slow down. And just my observations of things became clearer. There were so many different benefits. And yet it's something that I continually let fall by the wayside. And they call meditation a practice because that's the whole point, is you're never proficient. You're never a master. You're just continually coming back to slowing down and focusing on the here and now. And so there's an app called Insightly that I use, has a meditation timer, and I'll just set it for a certain amount of time so that I don't need to think about anything else other than just trying to either focus on my breath or calm down my thoughts or whatever the focus happens to be. But they also have a bunch of pre-recorded meditation. There's one called Yoga Nidra for sleep. And I remember when I first read about it, it said, one of the comments said, I've never made it till the end. And I thought, perfect. It's 22 minutes long. I put it on before I go to bed. I've made it to the end once. And I remember getting towards the end and thinking, gosh, did they rewrite this? Because I've never heard this before. And I'd never made it that far. It really helps me sleep better. So
We'll be sure to put those in the show notes as well at the
Okay.
bottom or on this podcast so that people can go there and check that out. Also, what we'll put in the show notes is where can people get in touch with you or connect with you or see the stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, that'd be great. Everything, all of my social media links, you can view all of the ACT videos on my website, betsybutterick.com, has all the links to every social media outlet that I have and also the library of the ACT videos. So my blog posts are there, links for LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. If you'd like to connect with me, that's really the best place to go.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate your time, Betsy. Great stuff. And for anyone out there listening, I can attest to firsthand that she does a good job speaking to people and working with people, especially on communication. So definitely if your group or your team or your business needs some improvement in that area, which we all do really. And if you're looking for an expert, she's the person. So be sure to get in touch with her. Her information will be in the show notes. So thank you again, Betsy. I appreciate it.
Jamy, thank you so much. It's been great communicating with you.
I love Betsy's enthusiasm and outlook on life. You must check out her website and her videos. She brings so much passion and knowledge to the content that she creates. I enjoy listening to her and have even borrowed some of her stuff in my talks, but we'll just keep that between you and me, okay? Anyway, thanks for listening, and please be so kind to give us a 5-star review on iTunes. That helps others find the show. And until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?